Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakumullah khair for coming. One is better than nothing. Hopefully, inshallah, we can benefit of something today. So this is also a reminder for me, because we're all here teaching in FLA, and sometimes even as you're preparing for something, you kind of remember, am I doing that? So inshallah, this will be of benefit to discussions. So the first thing that we're going to kind of talk about a little bit of like research-based techniques of those different learning styles. We'll touch quickly upon teaching methods of the Prophet ﷺ and see if any of them are, did he use any of the kind of what we teach today, or did he have different methods that we can learn from as well? And then moving on to kind of conventional educational kind of theories, like Bloom's taxonomy, which kind of also talks about the different types of learning. And then we'll have a discussion about teacher-centered classroom versus pupil-centered classroom. And this probably will be kind of, for us, a trip back in memory lane a little bit, when we were young and how teaching was for us, and then how teaching is today for children. And then we'll kind of go into practical steps, because the whole point is not to talk about theory and leave today not knowing exactly what things can help us in the classroom. So we want to kind of look at how we can create a creative environment in the classroom. Talk about teachers' passion. This is really, really important, because our passion drives a lot of things in our classroom. And then we will kind of do a few examples of creative activities, and I'll show you a few today. So we will actually do them as if you're doing a class with the children, and just see if we kind of get excited, if it really engages you, or do you just feel like, no, this activity didn't really kind of was meaningless. And also how all of this can affect your lesson plan. So when you're trying to plan for your lessons, all this, thinking about what kind of method I want to use, is very, very important. So I'll kind of also touch upon that. And then I was hoping that at the end, we can share some ideas about maybe creative or effective methods that we've used in classrooms. So I want you to start thinking, and maybe we can share even one that we've used in the past term, maybe an effective kind of method that you've used and you felt, the children actually learnt, they were engaged. The classroom was, there was a lot of creativity and so on. So let's start. So we're going to kind of think about when we were younger, when we were students. And I want you to think about, or try and remember maybe a creative or a fun lesson that you had, whether in school or in madrasa, in terms of learning the Quran. Can you remember like this, like maybe a lesson that you came out of and you thought, that was the best lesson I've had, and you still remember it till today, or maybe a teacher that you specifically remember? Is there anything?
I'll give you an example.
Mm-hmm.
I think from my childhood, being a non-English speaker, but having English as a language that was taught quite intensively at school. And I was in a language class, so in the basic school, around 12 to 15 years of age, we actually had every week 2 hours of oral English, and it was taught by Peace Corps member from UK or from America. And these were usually young people who had no teaching background whatsoever. They just went anywhere in the world, to teach English, but just basically, speaking.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember it very clearly that we were all really looking forward to these lessons, even though these young people, they were 20, 21, 22. They didn't even have lesson plans, they didn't have books, they didn't have anything. It was basically just, right, we're going to sit down and talk about, anything. Mm-hmm. But we remembered what we were talking about in the lessons, and even if it was, stuff about, backbiting other teachers or, whatever, but because we got to choose the topics, and because it was very informal, and because it was not about, here's my paper and here's my pen and I will have to write an essay, and, we kind of or at least we had the impression that we were the ones deciding what we will do and how we will do it. It's made such a big difference. And we all got to, the teacher was just there kind of like monitoring that everybody got to say something. We were talking about like crazy subjects. But we chose the subjects. And as long as we were speaking, like the teacher would not say, no, don't, let's go and talk about the geography of Australia or something. No, like they let us choose whatever we wanted to talk about. And that made such a big difference that we felt that we owned that class. And we got to kind of, direct it. So I think that's one of the very big things that makes or breaks your class, that the children should feel that they own it in one way or another.
No, it's so important because that's actually one of the things that we'll talk about later on, about choice. And I think that's a very, very important point. I think even with adults as well, it's, when you give them that kind of freedom, you start seeing that they're so engaged within the classroom. And I don't know if you felt like maybe within your classroom, I remember once in stage 2, we were going to learn a story in Arabic. And before we started, so I spoke to the class and I said, what do you think is the best, how would you like to learn it? What would you like us to do? Would you like to paint? Would you like us to do story? And they were coming out with a million ideas. And then we were like, okay, we'll brainstorm all these ideas and pick a few because, within a few weeks we have to kind of finish the story. And they were so different in the classroom. Every single member of that class was so engaged. And they felt, they were like, this is so fun, we want to do this again. And I think it's right what Caitlin was saying about feeling like you've owned that class. And I think it's important to give your pupils a voice within the classroom so that they feel that they're not kind of, it's just another boring class. Anyone else? We were just talking about, if you can remember maybe, a certain class from when you were students that was kind of creative and fun, whether it was in school or in madrasa. That kind of, when you left that class, even till today, you kind of remember it and you go, that was like...
It's still a long time ago.
Yeah, yes, for all of us.
Okay, then you keep yourself multitasking.
Yes.
I'm still listening.
Yeah, I know.
Anyone wants to share any more? Or
I'm trying to think. It's
It is that far for some of us, not all of us, but
it's very far for me as well.
You still remembered it.
Memorable.
That's why that lesson was probably, or those lessons that you went to, were actually very successful in the sense that, they might not have had training or lesson plans, but they actually got to the students. And when you think about it, there's so much stuff that you have to do before you come and teach, but the main action happens when you're in the classroom. Did the students get what you're teaching? Yes, you could have maybe the perfect lesson plans and everything looks perfect, but on the day, how did it all turn out? Did the children come out thinking, I want Miss Aisha, I want that lesson again. I want to come back to that class again. It's that, how engaged your students were as well. What do you think, if we move on to question 3, what do you think a creative, or I put perfect in, quotation marks because there might not be such a kind of a perfect lesson, but what do you think, a perfect lesson looks like?
Things that use the different senses, so they should obviously be visual.
Yep.
And things that they need to listen to, but you have to vary it because children's attention span is actually quite short. So you need to have that variety because you can't really blame them if their mind wanders off. I remember when I was at school, my mind used to wander off a lot, and it's not really their fault.
So you think within 45 minutes, let's say within 2 hours, usually 45 minutes because we've got salah, and by the time the children come in, 45 minutes, how many activities do you think you should have? One, we sit on, teachers talking, 45 minutes, and they do a worksheet. Do you think that's a stimulating lesson? One? Or how would you spend that one activity? Kind of just give me an example.
For example, build something.
learn about it.
Okay.
For example, try to know about insects, for example.
Okay.
Discovering everything
Okay.
about this insect. Take 15 or 20 minutes.
Okay.
It's a kind of activity.
Yeah. So you would be talking about it maybe, or
Yes.
showing them pictures,
Yes.
and then
Everybody has to touch.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
so,
And then what would you do after 15 minutes?
this
Sorry,
is
I know I put you on the spot, but
okay.
yeah.
It's not going to teacher. Be
Okay.
question for have more information.
Okay, so they'll be listening maybe to facts. Maybe they might ask questions and you'll
Yeah.
answer them.
Yeah.
So a bit of kind of interactive.
Interaction,
Yeah.
Or maybe discuss opinions of others.
Yeah.
Students.
Okay. So that's I think what you meant was one topic, but within that, there's a few ways that you can be doing it. Yeah. So you're not going to spend 45 minutes just maybe touching that insect, and because some of them will get bored after like 15, 20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's within that lesson, you're going to go through a few different even teaching methods. So you'll have visual things. You'll have the senses. Touching. At one point they'll have to be listening, so auditory. So all the with the different learning styles that children learn in, you're touching on all of them to make sure that that child who can't sit properly and doing that, but at one point when he said let's touch that insect, he just that's it, and then he became so quiet and he was learning from you as you were speaking and saying those facts. So it's trying to make every lesson possible, use as many learning styles, as you can, especially if you have children in your class who maybe some of them have additional support needs, some of them might learn in specific ways, and that's why I think one of the most important things for a teacher is when you start teaching, get to know your pupils. Spend 2-3 weeks doing activities for you just to get to know them. You don't have to stick right into the curriculum and say, right, we've got a test after week 1, so we need to get started. Actually, take your time. And the main thing is that for you, over a year or over a term, you will see your effective teaching kind of, coming through with the students, with them showing how interested they are, showing their learning and so on. So that's the most important point. Now, I've kind of asked some of you, or some of you have shared what their best lesson or perfect lesson looked like. I've been also asking students what they think of us as their teachers, and I was going to say this to Caitlin, that I think this would be so. I mean, I did it on such a small scale, just a few students here and there, but I think it would be so worthwhile if we had even. So I've asked just a few students, and this is just a few quotes from 3. So somebody said, I took names out. So-and-so is really fun. She gives out something for good work. So there's some sort of reward in that sense, okay? I'll just read it and then I want to ask you and see what you think of those comments. The second one was, she understands us better than other teachers. And then the last one, I can't remember most lessons. So these were from students here. They don't reflect pupils from all ages. This was just a few students from one age group that I asked. What do you think? When you look at those, they probably are not talking about any of us specifically, but just generally. So imagine, we're in this institute, we are in FLA, and these children are telling us how good or what's. So what positive things do you think come out of these comments?
There should be a reward system.
Yeah.
There should be a reward system.
Because that's clearly something.
It works for me at home with my little one.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
As soon as I stop doing it, everything goes
not
out
interested.
the window.
Yeah. Definitely. So giving reward is really, really important.
Should it be consistent throughout the whole school? Or do teachers have to just make up their own reward system? What would you suggest? Because
I think so far,
Sometimes
it's like certain things work with certain children and they don't, and age groups as well. So I think the best way to go, in my opinion, is that every teacher figures out what motivates her pupils and then goes with it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always have to be, huge things. It can be very, very small things. Like, for example, with stage 1s, we've learned this year that they're like such sticker lovers.
Yeah.
Like the read book with the sticker is so much more fun than without the sticker. And they're actually counting how many they have, and with even the weekend
prizes for reaching the
yeah, so they want the prize, but it doesn't actually matter that much how big it is. They want something.
They've completed a task, a certain task.
Like the small thing
orange
as
page, you will get a prize. If you reach the blue page,
Because that's an achievement for children. Yeah.
Even with the eldest, I was very surprised because when we had the new group opened for the weekend school, so Aisha's group, I was very surprised that even the elder kids, I mean, there's one boy, he's 10 years old, he's counting his stickers. He's doing the read book and he's counting his stickers, and like every time he finishes, he's like, yeah, where's my sticker? And you only gave me one, and like he's asking for, no, I need a sticker for here, because otherwise she's going to get more stickers than me. And I'm like, he's 10, and like he is so motivated because he gets stickers. So it's such a small thing. Why wouldn't you want to,
Even table points. I mean, like if your classroom is sitting, group points. I mean, I think individually it might be harder, but it's even little things like that. I know, like within FLA, there's teachers do it in completely different ways, and I guess it's about experimenting as well.
With my class, so we don't pretty much do the full 2 hours where it's just teaching.
Okay.
So probably by like 5:30 or 20 to 5, they get to like the better table, like the best behaved table, or the ones that came up with better like creative idea would pick the last like movie they could watch on Netflix. Okay. So it's always like a documentary, but they enjoy like watching Planet Earth. So like, it's like I put it up and it's sort of like, well, Miss, can we get to pick? And they know what they have to do in order for them to pick. So then you hear them, like if someone's like disturbing the other person, it's like, come on, we've got to win this week, like to get that Planet Earth.
So that motivates
it gets them going. So
that's like golden time.
Pretty much. Because by the end of the full lesson, like the first 2 weeks that I tried doing the full lesson with them, they became very disengaged, and it was just no one was pretty much wanting to carry on with their task. But they'll get the task going, and in between as well, they had breaks where they discussed their own like project and stuff. But
and it's Friday as well, so I think even your day of the week, maybe your students might behave and act differently just depending on, and you're probably in a way unlucky that it's Friday. Everyone gets excited but also is tired. But that's a good way of motivating them. What about any kind of negative, what do you see as negative coming out from these?
I can't remember most lessons.
Yes. Now, I think that's what we want to tackle. I think it's not like we want our children to remember every single lesson, on Monday the 20th, I remember this is what we did. But generally, we want the children to come out actually have added something to them. They've learned something. Whether in terms of their education here, the Arabic, the Quran, the Islamic studies, or even in their akhlaq as well, all these other skills that they should be building up in FLA. Or something else, maybe within like their friendship. I came to, Miss Haisha today gave me a sticker because I tidied up. And, like talk about cleanliness in Islam. All these things, sharing, things like that, and especially with younger ones. These are really important. And I guess our aim is to try and not have that, that we want our children to remember their lessons. Yes, it's a difficult time. They finish school, they come to FLA. At that time, a lot of the other children are just kind of at home on TV and, maybe on their iPads. But we have them for 2 hours every single day, and we don't want these 2 hours like as if it doesn't exist. They come and go, and by the end of the year, what has those 2 hours added to them? Nothing. We don't want it to be like that, because that's us. We failed in our job, and subhanallah, we don't see our job in terms of just, we just come in, we do our 2 hours and we go, because we feel like that's a big responsibility that Allah has given us. And we really need to make sure that we give it our best, because we are accountable, whether we like it or not. We are accountable if we have children, the way we raise them up. We are accountable for the fact that I have a class, and am I giving them my best, And, of course, like sometimes it's difficult for you to be learning along the way, and it doesn't come easy for us also to teach children, but at least we have to try, And, whether we have, Miss Caitlin or someone else come observe our class and maybe give us some comments, or we want to always improve, that's something that we should always be thinking of doing. And hopefully, inshallah, the second point as well, understand this better than other teachers. I think that point is really interesting because, that, I don't know, for me, that makes me feel like this specific teacher has spent time with those children to maybe get to know them, to spend time.
Pupil-teacher relationship.
Absolutely, yeah.
The teaching is more like a
Yeah,
relationship.
yeah.
Children do feel it when the teacher's trying to, accommodate their needs,
Yes.
rather than just stand there like, I have to, go from A to Z today. They do feel it very much. They understand, even though they may be not capable of expressing it always the right way, but they do get it when the teacher's, trying hard to teach them, not just, give the information.
And I think that's really important for us to reflect on these points, because I know this is not about our lessons and we have to follow the curriculum, but this is about the other stuff that actually makes your lessons amazing for the children, because this is what they will remember. They won't remember, did Miss Sarah actually accomplish all her targets by the end of the term? No, they're not going to remember that. They're going to remember you as a teacher, and whether you were good at your job, if they enjoyed your class or not. So that was just something. Maybe we can do this as kind of a review every year or every term, and that could be something good for us to reflect back on and see how well, or how maybe we could do something like a survey at the end of the year, and see how much children rate us. We always complain about children. They don't. If they studied at home, if they did their homework, they'd be a bit higher. And of course these are like real issues. But then we have to also. I don't know if you remember the training that we did about reflection, but reflect. So first, we want to just kind of quickly touch on teaching methods that the Prophet ﷺ used. I know sometimes we're talking about modern way of teaching, and then you go back to the Prophet, but subhanAllah, the Prophet is the best teacher. And to be honest with you, if we had his love and we had his wisdom, and why would the Sahaba who were 8, 9, 10 around him used to follow him everywhere? Our children don't even want to be with us. And they're like, stop giving me orders, stop doing, But subhanAllah, look at the way the Prophet ﷺ used to teach, and everyone used to love him. And I think this is a point that we'll touch on when we talk about teachers' passion, and just kind of learn from the kind of methodology of the Prophet ﷺ. So these are just 3 kind of points that I've picked up from the way that the Prophet ﷺ used in terms of teaching the Sahaba. But there are many more. This is no way comprehensive list. So the first one, I don't know if you can remember this hadith about kind of talking to the Sahaba about about cleanliness and about wudu generally, yeah. And so he's kind of stimulating their interest and curiosity by kind of telling them, imagine there's a river, and every day you take a bath in it 5 times. Do you think do you think there'll be any dirt on you? And the Sahaba are imagining, they're in the desert, right? So imagine what this is doing to them. And I'm sure, the Prophet ﷺ was talking to Sahaba who were old and young. And, Sahaba could be from, whatever age. They were always following the Prophet to learn from him. So he's kind of stimulating, because he's asking questions and he's waiting for them to answer. So he's not just telling them, right, I will tell you today, wudu makes you clean, and you need to make wudu before every prayer, blah, 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 blah. He's actually making it kind of an interactive. He's making them imagine, so as if he's giving them this visual aid, like a river, and how clean you are, even though they didn't have PowerPoints and stuff, but look, the Prophet ﷺ was able to kind of use that. Another one is with the Prophet ﷺ, like kind of drawing a line when he is, sorry, I'm just trying to remember. Yes, talking about this is the straight path, follow it, and there's diversion. So he's drawing this, in the sand. So again, another visual, as he's talking, so yes, it's a lot of listening, but they can also see. So whatever, you can think about those learning styles that we talk about, the visual, auditory and kinesthetic, all of that is happening, And nobody refers back to that as in like, oh yeah, he actually taught the different learning stuff, but look at the way that he's teaching, subhanAllah. And then the last one, the use of gestures and the subhanAllah, the very famous hadith about I put cancel. When he's talking about taking care of orphans and how they're like this in Jannah. And what do people use nowadays? Sign language. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And sign language, I have seen it in one of my daughter's classes, not here, but down south. They've used sign language with children who have difficulty reading. And they use it so that, for example, say the word house, and there would be a certain sign for it. And as the child is reading, they're reading and they're using, their sign language. Yeah, and the child starts recognizing. So when he's a bit stuck, so instead of going, like doing it letter by letter, the teacher just shows him the signs it. And then they become very, very fast in reading. So this is, subhanAllah, like if you think about just 3 examples and what styles the Prophet ﷺ has used, and it's really important. It's very difficult to imagine, like, if I'm teaching and I'm literally just doing this and I'm, my hands are not moving, my face is not moving, I'm just, right, today we are going to do you think any child, any adult would want to listen, There needs to be some sort of movement, some sort of excitement in the classroom. If you're teaching your pupils about wudu or about salah, don't teach them on a piece of paper and say, right, this is how it should be and this is how it should be. That's an action. Like take them, go to the toilets, show them how you make wudu. Or even if you wanted to teach them that hadith. Yeah, we're in Scotland. There's lots of greenery. There's a river. There's, do trips, just even that simple hadith. Sit down, the summer is coming, inshallah, spring. Take them out and do, today, maybe in life skills or in Islamic studies or whatever subject you're teaching them. Today I want to do this and I just want to do it maybe the prophetic method. I want to do it like the Prophet ﷺ taught it. And don't think about, but I'm going to waste the whole lesson. But you know what? The children will probably come out of that lesson and they'll remember it for a very, very long time that, Miss so-and-so took us to, the park or took us to that place and she was talking to us about that, hadith. Or I'm just kind of giving you examples that you can actually kind of make your lessons very creative. You can, try and not do it the traditional way. So moving on to this era, so this was 1,400 years ago, I thought this is really important to kind of touch upon. So Benjamin Bloom, he's an American educational psychologist, and he developed this, what is referred to Bloom's taxonomy, and it talks about how a student environment can foster learning. Okay, and he's come up with this like pyramid, and it identifies the different process of learning. So this would be kind of the low order of learning, which is just remembering, recalling information. So I've just kind of been talking to you just now and you're like, okay, I can maybe remember that. Or maybe you've memorized something and you can just ask a student, do you remember what that word meant? So it's just kind of from memory. Moving up until you kind of get to the higher order learning, which is, things like analyzing, evaluating and creating and, being innovative. And the idea is that you generally start with children from bottom, and with time you start teaching them so that they, you don't become a teacher in the sense that you're spoon feeding them every single fact. You kind of give them that freedom so that they are able to, start analysing and learning for themselves. Trying to go up that ladder so that their learning is not always dependent on you showing them every single point. Does that make sense? Even like, as we go through like high school and then university, you probably know, they don't want us to kind of write essays just based on, describing, and they want you to think. They want you to try and open up, and absolutely, and try and think of new ways. Why do you think this is? Right? Why do you think this has happened? Why do you think this part, Allah mentioned it in this story of the one of the prophets, for example? Why is the story of, the Ghurab mentioned in the story of Habil and Qabil? Why? Why did Allah mention it? Because Allah doesn't mention anything just, for no reason. There's always, so you can get your children to start asking questions and start feeling, we're not just learning the way that we've learned. This is the story of Adam alayhi salam. That's it. So you can try and actually make them think. So when they leave home, they might be like, they'll tell you their parents, but then it keeps their mind thinking about the story and how they can apply it in their life as well. It's not just about, okay, let me tell you the story and this is where the story ends. This happened many thousands of years ago. That's not really what we're trying to do. And remember where we are. We're in the UK. The way that the children learn here is so fun, so interactive. They want the child to think. And we come here in FLA and we're like, okay, so this is the story. We just go back to like thousands of years ago in the way that people teach. We can't do that. And even Allah and the Prophet has always, look at the way he's teaching. He's asking them questions. He's answering questions. He's stimulating their thinking. And that's really important that we try as much as... Okay, so if we go back in time... Well, I remember like my school years when I was in primary. I was in Palestine, and the way things were taught, the teacher was, at the front. She probably hardly moved even, yeah. And she'd be like, and if you spoke, oh my God, I don't know if you got, if you got some sort of punishment, but the way I remember it, nobody was allowed to talk. And you would sit in typical rows, like what we would refer to like Victorian era, like 2 by 2. Yes. You'd face the front if you even fidgeted with something or you did something. So it was more like a dictator kind of thing, Somebody's at the front, they talk for an hour or for the whole day if you had the same teacher. And that's it. What do you do? You memorize every single word that they've taught you, because that's what will come in the exam. If you write something from your mind, you're going to get a 0. No creativity, no critical thinking, nothing. And that's when you've got kind of the teacher is at the center of the classroom. And that used to exist a long time ago in here as well. It still exists in probably many of Muslim countries. But the idea is to move away from that so that the center of the classroom is who? The student, the pupils. Because ultimately, I'm not the important one here. I'm only facilitating learning. Yes. But the important one is those pupils who are sitting in your classroom. And this is a really interesting point that, students do not like this. They come out and like my cousins have gone through this even when they've done like up to their hires back home. They memorize to the level that their brain cannot take anymore. They go, they write it all in the exam, they come out and they have forgotten everything. It was literally just like you memorize, you regurgitate everything you've memorized, and that's it. And it, like, if you think about it happens everywhere. Everywhere, and it's really disappointing. That's why education is so important. A lot of, to be honest with you, schooling is failing a lot of children, because of this. How are our children meant to love learning if this is the way we teach them? And this is what we need to be so kind of careful about here in FLA especially. We need to make sure that we are providing them with the best education in the best possible approach and method. And many of, I remember my teachers, oh my God, they used to love this. I come and I get respect. Nobody even dares opens their mouth. So this might work for some sort of teachers, but not in the 21st century and not in Dundee. We have to be very kind of careful about what kind of education we're giving to our children. We want them to enjoy and actually be close to their deen and Islam, Well, the Prophet ﷺ did not teach it in the most boring way possible. He was actually very interactive with, with his students, and we need to kind of go back to that, try and think of ways that will get those students to learn. So it's really important that, if children do not learn in the way we teach, we need to teach the way they learn. And that's why I said figure out at the beginning of every term, or when a new pupil comes into your classroom, figure out what's the best way that they learn, and then kind of amend your teaching according to that.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
I know that this is about students and teachers, but with the parents, did they put demands about targets? Do they have? Is that pressurizing teachers to?
They can't actually put, because at least for FLA, whenever the parents enroll their children in FLA, we have a curriculum. So if you enroll your child in FLA, that means that's the curriculum they'll follow. The parents can come and say, for example, well, my child is not enjoying the class very much, the teacher seems to be strict, or have complaints like that. But they can't say, please, my child needs more Arabic.
Yeah.
Or my child needs... Why are you teaching my child Islamic studies? Can my child do Quran instead? We've had some parents like that, but then I'll always have to tell them, listen, we have a set curriculum. This is how we teach. Now, if you enroll your child, that is what your child is going to get. If you're not happy with that, then maybe you should go and check what other schools have to provide. So they can't come and say what to teach.
Yeah.
They can complain about how you teach if they have a valid point, but they can't complain about what you're teaching because that's the set curriculum.
Yeah.
Is that what you meant?
Yeah, because in other traditional madrasas, they have this thing where the graduation of the student means when they've recited the Quran from the beginning to the end in front of a teacher.
Yeah.
That could take 10 years.
A lot of time.
That could take years and years. That was always a pressure on the teachers, is to listen to everyone's recitation. But here, obviously, I know that that's not the case. But I'm just wondering if that's ever been, like, why is my child not progressed in their, read book or whatever, but why they're still on
the same page,
or just So I'm just wondering if parents are putting pressure on teachers to focus on getting more memorizing done.
I think it's very important that as a teacher you also have a good communication with the parents. So whether that may be at the beginning of the year or like as parents' evening, and I think Caitlin always leaves that open to the teacher. Whether you want just an open kind of, a session with the parents and you tell them about what you're trying to achieve, what other targets, so they're aware of, and you have a good relationship with them. Or you have parents' evening maybe at the end of, every term. It's completely up to you. And I think it's really important that you also invest a little bit of time, especially at the beginning with parents, so that you and them are on the same page. Yeah. So that as well you can kind of count on them. Just tell them, for example, I'll be giving homework for this specific reason because, we want the children to develop. Like with the read book, it's up to the child and their own...
work at home.
Absolutely. If they don't, they might be stuck on the same page and other children are, going through it quite quickly. And I think it's important sometimes to tell this to the parents so that they're aware, because...
It's very important to keep touch with parents.
Absolutely.
Even when you meet her in the end of the lesson.
Yes.
Just
have a few words.
Especially the younger the children are, the more the parents are actually in charge of their learning. So especially when we're talking about stage 1 and stage 2, say, and of course upper stages as well, but them especially. It's vital to have this feedback. And if you can't, say anything, at the end of the lesson, then that's where we have dojo as well.
Yes.
You can send messages to the parents. We always update the parents, on the dojo wall. So this is what we've been doing. Also, I think it's very wise from our side also to give feedback to the parents about the children who are doing well. Whenever I post about, okay, this child has finished reading, or that child has finished Juzu Amma, the parents, without us kind of going and telling them, your child has not been doing
they're kind of realizing.
They're actually saying, oh my God, this child is in my child's class and they've actually achieved that. So how come? So maybe I should be working a little bit more with my child.
I think always you have to make sure that your communication is positive, even if, for example, your pupil got up to something and, there's behavior issues. Even the way that you talk to the parent, make sure that it always starts with something positive, and then you can, the more contact you have with the parents, especially if you make it a positive interaction from the beginning, the more kind of the parents will be, it's not like, oh, this teacher, my child's teacher, I don't want to they're quite strict and, she always does that, or because they've never had that conversation with that teacher. And it's good to just get in the habit. And I know it takes time, but even if you did it once in the year and just make yourself approachable to those parents, say, if you need anything, maybe before 4 o'clock might not be a good idea, but even just send me a message and I can, make time after 6 o'clock on it. And I know you're all busy and you've got children and, so just, you kind of come at it in a positive way, and that will make parents feel like, oh, right, she's quite approachable. I can just go and talk if I've got a concern. Or sometimes, even with pupils, sometimes something is going on at home and it really affects their learning. And it's good sometimes, parents might come and share, like, what, my child at the moment, this is going on at home. And, if you might see them that they're not able to concentrate or something like that, and they'll come and tell you this. But if you don't have that already good positive relationship with parents, you might not know, and you'll be like, right, why are you not doing your work? You've not done your homework. What is going on? And that child...
things that might be,
happening
from outside FLA. So as a general FLA policy, we try to keep that avenue very open for the parents. It's not only about the teachers, but whenever they have a concern about their child, or whenever the teacher would tell me, look, I have a concern about this child, I would actually call for the parent to come and talk to me. So sometimes it's been like I spend 1 hour talking to one parent because I see that they're worried about their child, and sometimes it helps them just let it out, and then we will see what we can do. And obviously then, if I see fit, I would have to talk to the teacher and say, listen, so this is the situation at home, so can we please, even if it's just, ignore that child, let that child be, as long as the child is still coming. That's what we want. We want the child to be there and, to be able to, get at least something from that lesson. So, that's definitely something that's very important in FLA.
And you want
have an open avenue.
And I think it really helps you as a teacher to also be aware of those things. It could be something as simple as, my child doesn't have snack before FLA, so they might come and they might be tired, or I might come late every time. So, if at least the teacher knows, she's not going to be like, right, you're late, and he's 5, you're late again,
not the fault of the child, obviously.
Absolutely,
it's the fault of the parent, if it's anybody's fault.
Yeah.
So why would we just,
take it all out on the child?
Frustration on the child.
Remember, we want children to come and have, a very positive experience when they come to FLA. This is really the time that they will remember when they're older, and everything is to do with their deen. So if we give them that negative, even a negative, our use of language, if it's like, not again, or you show a bit of frustration, maybe that child will go home and be like, I don't want to go to FLA ever again. And it's got nothing to do with the learning, but it's you as a teacher and how you word certain situations as well. So I know this is a lot of pressure, but this, essentially we're also developing as teachers, and this is part of our own learning curve as we are here.
Role models for the students.
Absolutely.
It's all about being good role models.
Completely. For children, they look up to you. Even, the way you look like, the way, I remember Caitlin came once with her glasses. It's like, you've got glasses. They actually are intrigued by you. Every single thing. You change something about you, and it's like, you actually wear glasses. Yeah, I am, and I'm a normal person. I've got hair, I've got...
Yes, that happened once.
Yeah. So they're actually keeping a very close eye on you. Yeah.
And I was like, I wasn't even thinking about that.
Oh
my God. Yeah. They actually pick up on these little things.
But it just shows you. Can you imagine, if we nipped out the classroom and I was maybe talking to Kay and I was like, and they've seen me do that, that'd be like, oh, my teacher is just like, like my mom. Right? How when they go home, it's like, my teacher said. So we're in that situation where they go and we're actually they hold us on a pedestal, So we have so much that we need to make sure that even if, I don't want to say it's like you're kind of acting, but you need to make sure that in these 2 hours that you are here, you are like the best. So I know that we've been talking for a bit. I've got an activity for you, and I apologize from Aisha and Caitlin because you're not allowed to like give anyone any hints.
Can we do a break after this?
Yeah, we can do a break. If anyone wants to do salah, maybe.
She's
Yeah.
not from the Asr, actually. So.
Do you want to go and do it? Yeah, that's fine. Right, we'll do this activity. So you have 1 minute, okay? And what you need to do...
I'll try it after.
Do it? Okay. I'm just going to put the timer on. So what you need to do, you need to connect the 9 dots with 4 straight lines without lifting your pen. So every single dot needs to be connected. And you've got a minute. Let me just get my timer.
4 straight lines. Okay, I can do it in 6.
Yeah, you need to do it in 4. Yes.
And this is possible.
Yeah, your minute has started.
Oh.
4 straight lines. And all the dots need to be connected.
That's kind of a clue.
Yeah.
That's kind of the point of it, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yes.
Yeah.
I was actually gonna crop it. Right, 20 seconds.
Okay.
There is one
Can
point.
you go back? Do you have to stop where you ended? Can you go back up to the middle, like
If you go back, that's another line.
Oh, is that another line?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Right, 9, 8, 7,
No, I didn't do it.
6, 5, 4, 3,
I'm very competitive,
2,
so this is stressing me out.
1. Did anyone manage to get it? No.
There's 5 left.
I didn't get it that day. Did you get it? No, I didn't.
No. I was like going off my mind. What's the maximum that you got? How many lines to connect all the 5?
Yes.
Right,
I
and it
didn't
needs.
even try it for connecting all the dots because
Okay, have a look. So the way they've done it.
it's a triangle.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a kite.
Yeah, so they started from here. They went up, down. So went even beyond, further than the dots. Went up, and also reached a point that there wasn't even a dot at, and then came back.
I was very close.
Were you quite close?
Yeah, I got the triangle.
Well done.
Okay, so I'll just have to draw the circle, the thing again,
Yeah,
just so I know
and that gives you an idea.
where to go. I don't want to have to think about what was the answer again. Right, so
What do you think? Like if I go back, if I go back to the original one. Sorry, I'm completely going. Right, so this is what we started with, and ultimately you probably have all been trying to do this, like this, that, like that, yeah, to connect all of them.
Yeah.
But actually, the answer was a little bit, they went beyond the dots as well. The idea here is that as a teacher, and in your teaching methods and in your own teaching, you need to think outside the box.
Yes.
Right? You need to be that different teacher that will always try some innovative ways, and be creative, be extra creative in your class. The idea is not for you just to kind of whatever everyone is doing, or if this is the traditional way of, for example, learning the Quran, this is what we do. I remember a few years ago, and when we just kind of, maybe it was the 2nd or 3rd year of FLA, and we were doing a memorization, and I remember I was like, right guys, we need to really find a way that is kind of a bit exciting. Remember, all the children go to school and they learn in such fun ways and exciting ways, and we come here, we're like, right, for 2 hours we're going to sit and read the Quran. Right, the children are so bored. 2 hours of this is like impossible.
Especially at the end of the day.
And I remember it was just like, no, but we have to stick to traditional methods. This has worked for us, and it will work with the children. And subhanAllah, as the year went on, the teachers were coming out with like different ways. And I remember Miss Amal, sorry, I called Miss Amal, I thought children were here. Amal came up with these, and she actually did them herself, okay? Like, for example, her class were doing Surah Al-Qari'ah, and at that time we didn't have even proper masahif and things like that. So even having this for the child, and it was laminate for them to actually read through it, and then some of the sheets didn't have all the answers, so it skipped an ayah, and the children would be like, Al-Qari'ah, what comes after that? So that was like the start of even like teachers trying out different methods. Even with these, before we started buying some from Learning Roots, they had to put them in order. So they're memorizing a certain surah, and they'd be like, what comes before what comes after, how many verses. You start thinking about okay, this ayah comes first, and it really stimulates your mind in a way that if the teacher asked you from the middle of the surah to read from this ayah, you knew exactly the ayah before it, the ayah after it, just visually. And because you've done it in so many different ways, and subhanallah, I think from then, people started getting the idea that we can teach Quran in traditional ways and non-traditional ways. Some teachers started using sign language. So I remember the young children, when my second daughter Aisha was, I think, in stage 1, they were learning Surah Al-Fil, and it was all Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi ashabil. It was all. Remember, stage 1, they're 5 years old. 5 years. How do they learn?
They enjoy with the actions.
They enjoy it more, and
they recite
completely. I was doing it with Ruqayya, my youngest, and I was just she got stuck at one point, and I said, and she knew the word exactly just from the action. And it, don't be afraid about using different methods. And that's this idea, think outside the box. Not because we learned things in a certain way. Remember, we came back from the 80s, or for some maybe 90s, or after. We learnt in ways, but we never had iPads and phones and all these interactive things that children use today. And I think we were talking about the teacher-centered classroom, and we want to shift that, or that is actually in many developed countries, that's shifted to kind of a more pupil-centered classrooms, which means that teachers are no longer kind of standing at the center. Everything is about me and what I'm saying. It's more like a teacher is more a facilitator or a guide within the classroom. The children are kind of getting an opportunity to actually learn and discuss. And within that setting, you'll see that children flourish and they become who they are, instead of a copy-paste of every child is exactly the same as the other, because all the information they're learning is just being dictated by the teacher. So it's a very different form of, teaching, and very different form of learning. There's a quote here which is I found really interesting by Einstein. He says that education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. And you know what? If we are able to create that environment for our children to be able to think and ask questions. I mean, how did our fuqaha discuss and think about every possible situation hundreds and hundreds of years ago if they were not thinking, if they did not think outside the box? If they just thought, right, this is the situation. No, they thought of hypothetical situations as well, within fiqh, and and this is, I guess, what we need to do for our children. Make them think outside the box. Let them have that opportunity to ask those questions that it might challenge us, because we probably know, things in a specific way, and we kind of say, yeah, but that's how it is. Yeah, but why? That's what children are like. That's their famous question. Why? And it will kind of challenge us as teachers and make us go and read a bit more and be more prepared for our classroom, instead of this is what happens. You just have to make. I don't know why I'm using the example of wudu and salah, but for many other things, even about the stories of the prophets, and prophets also made mistakes. Adam alayhi salam made a mistake, and teach them about how, that if this didn't happen, we wouldn't be on earth. Allah had a plan. Just this, make things rather than a story to be told, and this is what happened, and this is the main people in the story. Make it more of a discussion. Let them think. Do the whole kind of curiosity questions. oh, I wonder if the Prophet ﷺ was with us today and he saw those iPads, what would he think? Things that, just gets them to think and even bond a relationship with the Prophet ﷺ if you were doing about seerah or, because you need to relate to them today. And, I find that sometimes when you're talking to children about stories from the past, even like things, about Halima, for example, they don't understand, why were children sent, to other places to be fed. So you need to kind of make things a bit more relevant, we sometimes mums have to send children to childminders or so things that they're able to relate to instead of saying the story, but they go back, they're we haven't really grasped what that story actually means. So one example here, we were talking earlier about giving children choice. And this is something that I think, maybe we could kind of use within our classroom. So say, for example, we're doing topic of salah. And because you want to give your children choice within the classroom, you can create a variety of activities around the classroom, okay, that pupils can choose from. So say this can go on maybe for a week or for a few days, okay, rather than one day you might, maybe children might not finish each specific activity. And what you do, you'd kind of divide the classroom, say, into maybe 4 tables or 4 sections, and you would have, an activity here, and so on. And children can rotate and choose, that idea of choice. You give them that choice that you can rotate, you can start wherever you like. So maximum could be 5 at each table, okay? And you have to complete that task, okay? And I just thought of a few ideas. So, for example, maybe you can have one table, a computer-based activity, so maybe pupils are watching a video and they're answering questions. So that's one specific activity. Another one would be maybe children engaged in an educational game, maybe like this one, Companion Clues. This is one of the most amazing games. I use it at home with the girls, and
I've got an older version of this. It's just a pack of cards. And tells you the story of a companion. And then it has the name. Does it have the...
At the back.
So the idea is that you just read that and get people to guess.
Yeah, it's the same.
It's actually written in ABC form.
Yeah,
it's more of an actual...
Yeah.
What age group would you use this for?
I think this would work from... I don't know if it has a specific age group, but
two levels.
Yeah, so they have a harder, even an adult version. But this one, I've used it with my kids. Ruqayya doesn't get it because this is way too advanced. But Aisha, she's 8, she gets this, and if she's concentrating, she'll figure out because you're talking about different Sahaba. This is about the Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ, and the more you hear information about, the Sahabi or the Sahabi, the more you're listening, and you're listening to different people playing with you in the game, and if they get things wrong, it's I've heard that name, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, and now Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, what they were famous for. If you are covering Sahaba, this is this is a resource that you could do. Yeah. So imagine that was on one table as well, a game, a board game. Another table would be maybe, if it was about Salah, about remembering the movements, and you're actually self-evaluating yourself. So there's a sheet, and it has the specific movements. You have to go and try and see.
That's my son. Do you mind if I take it? That's my son.
If you are following those moves, and you're self-evaluating yourself, or you can do it in pairs, so that your colleague would be the person assessing you. So that's not the teacher as well. So that's freeing the teacher to be going around the different groups. Another one would be if you wanted them to create something at home, maybe a project, a song, a movie, depending on their age, about this specific topic. And that topic could be, it doesn't have to be Salah, it could be anything. It could be in Arabic, or it could be, maybe about a surah in the Quran. You can do that, and you would have changed the classroom a little bit. You've done something different in that week. And it would have freed you as a teacher to go around and maybe ask and answer specific questions. Instead of having 15, one big group doing one same activity, you've divided them, you've given them choice. And this is what children love. They love the idea that, I've chosen to start at this table. And suddenly they're yeah, right. And I'm assessing myself. And, so don't, think of ideas and, try them out and see what works for your pupils. Depending on their age, some of these might work really, really well. You might have to modify them for, younger ones or older ones. So this is just kind of a way that you can do even topics, or, in Islamic studies or in history, whatever topic that you're covering, you could do these things. Say you were doing animals in Arabic, okay? You could just think of kind of different activities that you would do, and that would touch on the different learning styles of children. So you might, for one point, it's very visual because they're, or an auditory because they're listening and watching a video, they're making notes. One of them might be doing actions, so kinesthetic. So you're trying to touch upon all these different learning styles. So by the end of it, even the ones who are usually quiet have actually engaged in all of these activities. And that's what you're trying to get, not to the ones who always... Now this is a bit more practical, and you've got all these notes, so, you can make it kind of like a checklist if these points might help you to make your classroom a bit more creative, kind of the environment. And I've just put a few here. I know we don't have a lot of time now. We've got half an hour, and I want to get through some of the activities that we're going to touch on. So it's like having a passion for your own subject, and that's something we will touch upon in a minute, inshallah. Making sure that your activities are varied, stimulating, fun, and they use the 5 senses. Visual, auditory, kinesthetic. Make sure that when you're planning, is this just me sitting and talking to them? They're going to get bored. 15, 20 minutes, or they're going to get bored. What activity am I going to have? In 1 hour, you should have 2 or 3 different slots. And I know it's a lot for you to think of, but sometimes you're doing it without thinking, but you need to make sure that it's structured, and every lesson is like this. Avoid chalk and talk, just like me sitting talking. You get bored, even as adults. Like, it's enough. Can you imagine children? They'll be fidgeting under the table, on top of the chair. They've had enough. So you need to make sure that it's very interactive, intriguing for them, and you change that, when necessary. Again, make sure your classroom is visually aesthetic and clean environment. Come a little bit early before your classroom starts. 4 o'clock is when exactly we start. Come a little bit early. Just make sure everything is fine. All the things that you need is here. Welcome your children personally, rather than, sometimes, I think Caitlin has mentioned this a few times, sometimes the children are here and then the teacher comes. Does this happen in our children's classes and at school? It doesn't happen. The teacher's always there first. You need to be the one owning this classroom. This should be like, if this is your classroom, this is like one of my rooms in my house. Like, I know where everything is. It needs to be clean. It needs to smell nice. So kind of treat those classrooms as if they were part of your own home. Because if you do, I bet your children will start not making so much mess. They'll put things in the bin. They'll make sure we need to clean it after we finish, because you know what? This is our classroom. We're coming to it tomorrow. We want it to look nice, to smell nice, to be nice.
It's so much easier to make a mess if it's already messy.
Yes, absolutely. Again, think outside the box. This is a really good point. Turn little opportunities into big ones. I know sometimes we need to stick to our plan, but something happens in the classroom, right? Don't think, right, I don't have time to deal with this right now. You know what? Stop everything. And if you feel that children might kind of get something and use that as a learning opportunity, stop the classroom and do it. Because you know what? This is probably when children actually learn. If there was an incident in the classroom or somebody was upset and you kind of taught them how to deal with this. This is also important. This is what, our deen is all about akhlaq. It's all about akhlaq, and akhlaq comes before the facts and the memorization and the Prophet ﷺ, when Aisha was describing him, she said he was a Quran walking. Like he everything that you can think of, all these perfections, subhanAllah, that Allah tells us to try and do in dealing with each other and so on. And these little things, I know sometimes we don't write them within our lesson plan, and it's not something that but you know what? If you get that, then that's more important than I've taught them. Tawila means table, and this means that, and this means that. At least for today, or for that lesson. Occasionally break the routine and be spontaneous. So whatever it is that you might, usually you might greet your class at the door. This time, you might go in the foyer and kind of say, Assalamu alaikum, how are you today? Let's go in together, or let's go in pair. Just change it. Or in the classroom, they might come in and everything is, usually there's nothing on the tables, but this time you put little questions for them. Just use the resources as a lot of them, maybe a picture and a quick quiz, after they start the lesson, a quick quiz, right, everyone just tell me what these are in Arabic, or there's a hadith or something like that. It could be anything. SubhanAllah, the opportunities are endless. You can make, your these little ideas as creative as possible. And they don't have to take time. There's so much in the resource room that you're able to use. Allow noise and movement within set boundaries. I know for us, this is something that, we want a very quiet classroom. I don't want to hear anything. I want you all to be looking at me. But sometimes for some children, they can't do that. They can't have this eye contact. And, they might be very fidgety. They might be small. Remember, some of the children are very, very small. And you need to be able to allow certain things that do not disrupt the rest of the classroom. If you need an assistant, tell Caitlin. MashaAllah, alhamdulillah, we have so many people helping out in FLA now that even if there was a child who was a little bit disruptive, you can kind of, sit them beside, an assistant, or somebody can sit beside them and always make sure, we're going to do this, so that it doesn't affect.
Make very, very good assistants as well. I mean, yes. You know your class, you know who should be sitting next to who, and some children having a very good influence on others. Yeah. So you could use that resource as well.
Change like the classroom arrangement. I didn't have that on the board, but every term in school they change them so that they're sitting beside different people, so that it's not always just like the friends or the children who get on well together. No, that you're mixing them up so they get to know each other. Other children who they work in pairs with children that they might not always choose to, but this is also part of learning how to deal with other kids that, not necessarily, but you as a teacher, you need to facilitate that. So maybe every term you change it and you make it a habit that children know that, Miss Aisha will be doing that, and, we know that Miss Aisha is going to change how we sit at the beginning of every term, so that, you can kind of use that in a positive way, where you don't put, like, if two people always, are very rowdy in class and very loud, you can just, change it in that setting without them making a demonstration. Why did you do that? And this is my friend, and so on, because it's part of the classroom routine. Again, like things like, foster curiosity. I wonder, if Prophet Muhammad was here, I wonder if we were in Jannah now, like if you were talking about Jannah. Jannah is one of those topics that intrigue me so much. Can you imagine, like, children, if you talk to them, like that hadith about it's nothing like any eye has seen, or anything that imagination, like, honestly, for children, just let them think about what Jannah might be. You might be talking, that might be your topic, and you might want to change the whole classroom into things that are like, palm trees or whatever things that are mentioned in the Quran about Jannah, and just make it something that they can see. They can kind of imagine. Oh my God! Like my daughters always think, can I have a river of chocolate in Jannah? And I'm like, well, in Jannah you can have anything you like.
Safa's really interested as well in Jannah.
Jannah's amazing.
Wow. When are we going to go?
Yeah.
A little trip.
SubhanAllah, they are so, children, like the things that come out of them is so, SubhanAllah, it's something for us to learn from, We think about things very seriously, but Jannah is it's a place where we want to be. And this is something that we should be like planting in all the children in FLA. We should be talking about Jannah. This is the place where we are. Why are we learning? Why are we memorizing Quran? Why are we learning Arabic? Why are we doing all this? So we can go to Jannah. So maybe make this a topic that, you excite them. You're like, what, in Jannah we can ask for anything. This is what, you can have palaces. The other day my husband was talking to my daughters, and he was like, your palace will be like, each brick is going to be like, one is gold, and the girls were like, oh my God, it's not going to be like here. Whatever nicest building you can see is. I'm going to leave the rest for you kind of to read so that we can get to the activities. This one is a nice quote. So, the mediocre teacher tells, that's all our teachers probably from the past. The good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, and the great teacher inspires. If we're able to inspire those children, and that comes with our passion, if we're able to inspire those children with anything, any topic, anything, that is good for their community, for their ummah, then you know what? You have. And these are, again, things that, like, practically what you can use to make the environment inspiring and creative for the children. So, like you were saying about use of technology, like, watching something at the end, which makes children, and not even necessarily at the end, but also use it as part of your, like, we're going to watch something. There's a lot of things online that you can use as part of your teaching. Just make sure that, you watch it first. You make sure because there's a lot of things, and like sometimes when you open up YouTube, there are things on, make sure it's all ready. Before the children come, make sure it's all, set up so that you don't have to go through from clip to clip and then something comes up and you're like, oh my God, what just came up? So these are just kind of ways. Now, I talked a little bit at the beginning about teachers' passion, but I feel like this is something that we really need to kind of dig a little bit deeper about. So, subhanAllah, for children, what they will remember at the end of the term or the lessons is you. You know how we were saying about even like if you wore glasses or you change your scarf into something, they'll notice everything. And your passion, if you have that passion of whatever subject you're teaching, it will come across to those children. If you don't have passion, it will also come across to those children. So imagine you're trying to teach children about something. Right, so today we're going to talk about environment. And clearly you don't know anything about the topic and you feel there's no passion coming through with your teaching. Children are going to pick on that. But on the opposite side, you being passionate about like Arabic or about Quran or about this, it's going to inspire children. It's going to motivate them. It's going to make them very positive about what it is that they're trying to learn from you. And the other part of teachers' passion is our love for the children that we teach. And by that, what I mean is, like in all schools, in most of organizations, they have this thing called pastoral care, okay, where there is a kind of an active commitment that we have a concern for those children. We want them to grow. We want, we care about their well-being and so on. And this is what I was saying at the beginning. If we come a little bit earlier, before the classroom starts, before we're like, okay, we have only 2 hours and I need to get through all of this, you get a chance to get to know those children and, just kind of ask them, how was your day? Figure out what's going on in their life. Maybe you just show them that you're a normal human being. You can also show concern and be kind of proud of their achievement. They might come and tell you, especially like probably young and old. They'll be like, I got a star of the week from school today. Oh, mashallah, like what did you do? I am so proud of you. Do you think you can do that also in FLA? You might be the star of the month this month as well. So it's like that encouragement. You have to show concern. It's not all about studying and getting through all our targets. That's very important, but this part is so important. And if you remember the quote that I had from one of the students here in FLA, that this teacher knows us more than other teachers. So like you probably ask about them. How are you? Maybe have how like at the moment this big thing going around in schools, especially in America, where like as pupils come in the classroom, they're like high-fiving and doing all that stuff. Maybe do like a handshake and a salam, with your children. Assalamu alaikum. How are you today? Just like an eye contact, like maybe do that, and that's really, really important. So be caring. Again, ask them about how their day is. Also be, have a humorous character. Children don't want to just see the very serious side of you. Also laugh at things. If something funny happens in class, you probably want to control even that part. But laugh at it. Oh, that was really funny, And they'll like you as a teacher. They'll listen to you more as a teacher because they've seen the funny side to you. But again, that issue is in like, we don't have any time to do this. And honestly, I see a big difference when I come in just 10 minutes early and I'm able to set my classroom and the pupil come in and everything is set up and I'm able to have just a conversation with them. So, the examples that we've had, let's see, we've got 15 minutes. So, we might not have time to do like these ones here, but we'll kind of just go over them and just kind of see how you can use these in class. So I've put them, they're not in the PowerPoint, they're just sheets on the table. So for example, the first one, you have a word search. Yeah? So that word search, that could be something that you could use as at the start of a classroom, the start of your lesson, or at the end of your lesson. Yeah? And for example, it's asking for the 5 preconditions of salah, and you time them. You tell them you've got 5 minutes, and you've given them literally no clues. Okay, and they have to, because they've been studying this, so they should know it. And you give them that 5 minutes, and you put a timer. There's a website that you could just put a timer, and it starts going beep beep, like it goes off, so the children can hear it, and they know that it's time. You're not going to spend the whole lesson doing this, especially if you start with this. So it could be a kind of a recap. And I think on this website, if you go on it, you can make your own word search. You can put the words that you want and make up your own word search. So this is something you can use. The only thing that I would have loved to is if this would be in Arabic as well. But again, you can use it for Islamic studies, for life skills. You can use it for even like if you wanted to go over maybe some rules, just about behavior management, and you could just use that and say, right. So, for example, be quiet, as in, so you can put the words that you want them to find. So this is one idea. The other idea is this. I don't know if we've got time. We've got 5 of them, so you might either do them in pairs, or we might have enough. So this one is another example, okay, where you need to make a loop. So these are questions and answers. Try and make like a loop of it. So some are questions, some are answers, and I think
then they have to connect.
Yeah. So like is it like a domino thing? So you can put them on the table. Yeah.
Okay, this is cool.
Yeah, but then this one joins to that.
So you can make it maybe as a circular, or yeah. Aisha's done, yeah. So we've got one done here. So you can even do it and time it, okay? And what this will do, it will also quiz, like this could be an activity that you've used. You could change those questions. I mean, how simple is that? Like, I could send you the template. You could literally just delete all these questions and put your own questions, your own answers. And it didn't need much. I just printed it. Aisha Jazakallah khair, she cut it for me, and that's it. It's an activity, and you could do it as like a recap or as a summary. So
is this stuff they've already been taught, or is it something that they would be learning as they're doing this? They've already been taught.
Yeah. So you could use it actually for both. So say for example, it's something that they've done, and this is like a recap. Or as they're learning, they're like, oh, I don't know the answer for this, but you've thought, I'll put the question, like as a board game, and they'll learn from it, and then towards the end of next week, by the time maybe they should have finished the topic, we'll do it again, and they'll be much quicker. So you can record the times that they've done it.
Done as a whole class as well.
Whole class, like a much bigger scale.
Yeah. So how would you evaluate it? Would you go over the answers?
So you would check who's got what kind of
They can work as a team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't have to be individual. You can check the ones who got maybe the answers, and then you'll know, right, if the majority didn't get it correctly, then I need to recap this a bit more. You'll know probably, if this was maybe your Thursday lesson, you'd be like, next week I need to spend more time on that. Maybe this might be like the kind of end of topic quiz, but you felt like, they didn't get it, so I need to do a bit more work. So it could be also a kind of an assessment, not just for the children, but also for you. So who sat on the answer? Okay? Some of you are sitting on answers, okay? So you need to check your chair. So I'm going to read out some sentences in English, and some of you have answers under your chairs. You might have to check the chairs beside you as well, just because not every chair is occupied. So check under your chair. So I'm checking if you're listening to instructions or not. So if you find anything, just take it out, and then I'll tell you what I'm looking for. There should be 5. Who's found? 2? You guys must. There must be something on that row.
At the bottom.
At the bottom, yeah.
Oh, I feel one.
Oh, under the chair, like
Under the chair, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I thought you meant on the floor. Or
Yeah.
yeah, this one.
You found? So how many do we have? Is that 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And then I'm gonna read out. So I've got. This is testing your Arabic, right? A black book. So it should be. You found one. Okay. A white book. Kitab Abyad. It should be. You've got one. A pink pencil case.
This one?
Yep. A blue eraser, rubber. Yep. A black ruler. Anyone got that? So what you would do with the children is you would get them to read it. You wouldn't just say, yeah, I've got that, I got it. You would get them to read it. So you would listen to the way that they're reading that. And what you've just done here, within a classroom, you've just got them so excited. Oh, we're going to check what's underneath. Maybe I've got. Because you're not going to stick it under every chair. You're going to put a bit of excitement, okay? And you're going to get them, right, there's something new today. And you could do that just like 2 minutes before your lesson starts. And it might be, the last thing you do in Arabic, but then they've been sitting on the answer the whole time. Like, it's going to make them really kind of excited. And you could do that again for anything that they're learning.
What would you do? How would you deal with disappointment? Because see, when some children get picked and other children don't, some children can really go in half. Why didn't I get one? And then they start throwing it about like they go in half or.
What you can do, for example, if you know how like some of you, Aisha found one here and she shared it. So like if you find more than 2, or maybe you can work in pairs. So if you got one and the person next to you didn't get one, so pretend that this is for both of you. And you can explain the sharing. So like you would have explained the rules before you start playing the game. And you would kind of teach them something that, or ask them at the end, Aisha, can you please collect all, you've noticed like somebody's getting upset that they didn't get something. You pick them and say, can you please collect all these for me? MashaAllah, you've done it so quick and before the bell ring. So you kind of always use positive, language and encouragement with the children. But yes, when you start with a game, then you have to remember that some children, you got competitive before you said about that. So you remember that children also can, can get upset very easily with these things. So just make sure whatever you're planning, limit it. Or maybe put one underneath, every chair. I mean, you could make it, So everyone gets a card, and everyone is expected to read a sentence in Arabic, and it's kind of a revision for them if they know.
Get upset over something.
Yeah.
Everybody has a sentence, but then somebody makes a mistake, and then they would be upset.
Yeah.
So I think we should always treat it as not like a failure, but like a possibility to learn something from it. So it makes a good teacher if you can just take something that's negative and turn it into a positive thing. So that's like the reflective thinking here. Like
absolutely,
you have to think each and every time you see something is not quite as it should be. Okay, so how can I make something positive out of this?
That's a really good point. Yeah, and sometimes you have to be quick. Or sometimes maybe you kind of reflect on it in the next lesson. So tomorrow you've had also a time as a teacher to think about what happened, and you can use that to reflect. Like reflection should be something that we also kind of put in our children from the beginning. So always like when you tell them, I want you to think about what you've done. Yeah. Next day comes and you're like, right, this thing happened in classroom and some people got a bit upset, and we want to use that as a learning opportunity, and you've had time to think about it as well. Even like sometimes on the spot you might not have time to think, how could I make this into a positive learning experience, but you can have that maybe the next day.
Just to say, because I'm new, I'm just wondering, there is a reward system.
Yes.
Is there also like if the behaviour is going
punishment system,
level, do you give them time out within the classroom? Can you say can you do things
we have a specific policy for that? So if you go on Dropbox and you check policies, everybody must do
okay, so there's a lot still I don't know.
Is it called, what is it called exactly? I always forget. Rewards and sanctions?
Yeah, rewards and sanction policy.
So if you read through that, this is something that we try, to do it in each and every class, so the children would know that it's always the same thing. Teachers are different though, so some teachers, they manage discipline pretty well without having to send kids out of class. So if they say, okay, well, I'm just gonna do something on my own. So we have some teachers who almost never send kids out of the classroom. but then others, and it really depends what the child is doing.
Yeah, I'd rather not send them out of the classroom. I'm just asking if...
The moment you see that it's so disruptive, that it's being, disruptive to the whole class or a certain part of the class, then it's not okay. And then if the child is not listening, as Sarah said before, if it's just, fidgeting or the child's not looking at you, like as much as you can, ignore. As long as the child is still learning, you should ignore whatever they're doing, other things. Because we've had pupils who actually, sitting under the table. They would not be able to sit still. But as long as the teacher would see that they're still learning, if you're asking the child a question and the child is actually answering, so that means they're following. So just let them be, because some children will not be able to sit still.
Yeah, I've seen that.
While we're on the topic, I wanted to ask, there's one child who I find it's like she can be very disruptive because she is very, very loud. And she can't seem to withhold that at all. And I'm not quite sure how to deal with that without having to constantly reprimand her.
Yeah.
And then that disrupts from the whole lesson because I'm focusing on her too much. And even when I say, I was saying to her, so I've only, because I've not been back teaching, I've only actually had her once.
Okay.
The last time I taught her was 2 years ago or something. Okay. But so I just had her recently, and I told her, okay, we're going to practice speaking really quietly, especially because we were in such a small room, so we're going to use our whispering voices. And she just can't seem to do it. It's like something she just can't understand the concept of.
Sometimes what would work, and these things might not work all the time, is to get that pupil to sit as close to you as possible, so that you don't have to all the time call her name and say, Sarah, like you would just do, or eye contact, just kind of look at her and kind of I'm not happy with that, just, and then have, make rules, this is, I know it's not specifically this, but you can make up your classroom rules. I mean, there are general classroom rules, but then you can, at the beginning of the year, talk about these, make them, a few rules, but the rules that really kind of are very important for you and for your class. So things like, put your hand up before you speak. That is something that I remember when I was teaching stage 2, and that stage it was all they all wanted to speak all the time.
Yeah.
We don't have that, so you sometimes you have to remind them of the rules every single day, maybe for a whole term, until that child will understand. No, I will not listen to anyone who shouts out. So no loud voices in class. You need to put your hand up before you speak. We need to respect each other, and even for you as a teacher, in school, the teacher will put her hand up as wait for everyone to be silent. There's no need for you to shout, no need for you to scream, because the minute you start screaming, they're going to get louder and louder. So again, it's probably a good idea to read over the rules for especially you were talking about the different sanctions and things like that. So giving warnings and so on, and just make yourself familiar with what also works for your classroom. And you're able to have your own unique kind of rules as well in the classroom that works for this specific class.
Sometimes when children are very loud, it's not actually very helpful to tell them off, because they want attention. So you're giving them this attention. But what I've noticed that does seem to work pretty well is as Sarah said, that raising your hand if you want to say something. You'll just ignore anyone, even if they're raising their hand and talking at the same time. You're shouting out, I'm not listening, and you give the word to somebody else who is waiting patiently. So sometimes ignoring it will help, but then again, there are pupils who are unable, to just, stay still physically or verbally. So I would say again, if it's not disrupting the rest of the class, then try to ignore it. If it's disruptive so much that others can't learn, then you need to figure out how to
because I think
address it.
in this case, if I just put in place all those rules and she still continued to be very loud. I think that is disrupting the class significantly. Like, I don't have a problem with fidgeting, and I don't have a problem with people talking to each other, because it's unreasonable to expect people to be completely silent. So I never point those things out and say, oh, you can't talk to each other. But in this case, it's a case of, even for the rest of the people in the class,
it's very loud.
It's too much. It's too much. It's very distracting.
Another idea would be maybe to speak to her on her own as well, like maybe, today, or maybe make her in charge of something. So I want you to give out the jotters today, I want you to do this. I don't know if we're speaking about the same pupil, but I had a pupil in stage 2. Right, all the kids are here, so we'll just try and finish. The last one was just another activity. And then the next few slides were just ideas that you can do in Quran, in Arabic. And in Islamic studies. The only one that I wanted to point out really specifically about Islamic studies was, maybe this is with the older ones. If you were doing like personalities like Sahaba, or maybe like a historical period, say you were covering Umayyads. You know how like in school they cover the Romans, the Vikings. They change everything, right? Everything changes. You learn about how they dressed, what they ate, their art, their big architecture, all this stuff. And I think this is a really big point where we can flourish as teachers and make Islamic studies so different. So whether you're covering prophets, or whether you decided, or in your curriculum you were covering one of these periods in history, like say for example the Umayyads, and you're talking about the different rulers who ruled, what from where to where, get them to come and dressed as people, like a project and so on, ideas. And I wanted to leave you with this to for you to think about. When you're making your lesson plans, ask yourself, what am I teaching? What's your learning objectives? Maybe as children get older, I was thinking to do this with my class, maybe make your learning objective very clear at the beginning of every lesson, and they're able to write it down and see, did we accomplish that? What am I teaching? Okay? And when you know what you're teaching, what teaching methods will I use? If I'm teaching this specific topic, every topic is going to be different. What am I bringing? Am I bringing props? Am I using this? Am I using a video? Am I using a variety of the different learning styles, the senses? How can I make my lessons engaging and creative? Do I implement classroom rules? All these things will help you having the best and effective classroom. So whether you have, you implement your rules, whether you use positive language, your use of rewards and encouragement, all of this helps at the end of the day to have that, what we were talking about, that perfect lesson. And this is something that we've done in break when we were just sharing some ideas. I would really recommend maybe, just going into the resource room, checking what we have, or even, the WhatsApp group that we have. Ask each other, say, for example, I'm going to be, it's okay, it's the end of the I'm doing this topic. Guys, I'm not sure how, you've all probably taught it. Do you have any ideas? Make it, it's not just for Caitlin to tell us about the rules and what's going on, but also this is probably the only platform that we have, which is not face-to-face, but where we can ask and learn from each other. So I hope, inshallah, we've learned something today. Jazakumullah khair for sharing your experiences, and I wish we had now a bit more time just to go over them. But take these notes, and inshallah, if you need any hand or any extra, or if you have any questions, just put it on the WhatsApp group, and inshallah we can follow it from there.